Welcome to the special call of Muskogee Parking Authority for May 22nd, 2017. Roll call.
Mayor Bob Coburn. Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale. Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Very good. Item number 1.
Consider approval of minutes of the Special Call Parking Authority for September 12, 2016.
Any additions or changes?
Move for approval.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any comments? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. I was waiting for the mayor.
I knew.
Item number 2.
Consider approval of a resolution approving the Muskogee Parking Authority budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 and establishing budget amendment authority or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, members of the authority, we have the budget as presented and we've discussed over the last few weeks. For the parking authority, it's been part of the discussions that we've had through the process, and we recommend approval.
Any questions for the city manager?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Seeing no further business, we are adjourning the parking authority and will now call to order the Muskogee Municipal Authority for May 22nd, 2017. Roll call.
Mayor Bob Coburn. Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Very good. Item number 1.
Consider approval of a resolution approving the Muskogee Municipal Authority budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 and establishing budget amendment authority or take other necessary action.
Mr. Miller.
Yes, Chairman, members of the authority, this is the budget for the Muskogee Municipal Authority. We have discussed it in detail when we've been talking about the overall city budgets. Again, this is the budget that the increases, the upcoming increases for the water and sewer rates will remain in this budget and will be used for debt service on the loans that we've recently gotten, and also be used as we go through the year to pay cash for special projects as they come up related to water and sewer lines. So that being said, I'll answer any questions and we recommend approval.
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 2.
Consider approval of an agreement for engineering services between Muskogee Municipal Authority and Cowan Group Engineering for modeling the city's water distribution system or take other necessary action.
Mr. Riley, looks like this is yours.
Chairman and Authority, this is our contract we've discussed before for the water modeling system. It's an engineering agreement with Cowan Group Engineering. We have Tim Ward here and Jeff Cowan are here, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. We recommend approval.
Thank you, sir. Any discussion, questions?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any other thoughts? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Motion carries. Seeing no further business, we're going to adjourn the Muskogee Municipal Authority, and we're going to call now the Muskogee City Council with May 22nd, 2017. If you'll rise with us for the invocation from Mr. Reed.
Shall we pray? Oh, gracious Father, we come thanking you for the gift of another day. We ask that you would continue to bless our community, look upon our community. We've been through a terrible storm, but we just like to thank you for sparing lives in our community. Bless those who were affected by the storms that came through, that they'll be able to get their homes and their businesses back together again. Ask that you would look upon us on tonight as we take care of the city business. Ask that what we do would be pleasing in your sight. These and many other blessings we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Would you join me for the flag salute? Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bear with me. Roll call. Again.
Mayor Bob Coburn. Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston. Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
Do I hear a motion to excuse the mayor?
Make the motion to excuse the mayor.
Second.
A motion and a second. Roll call. Sorry.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item is approval of minutes for the City Council special call, May 2nd, 2017, the special call, May 3rd, 2017, and regular session of May 8th, 2017. Any additions or changes?
Motion to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. We have the consent agenda, items 1 through 8. Anything needs to come off the consent agenda?
Move for approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
The motion carries. Item number 9.
Hold a second public hearing to receive input and comments from citizens and discuss the City of Muskogee budget for fiscal year 2017-2018, as well as the proposed budgets for the Muskogee Parking Authority and the Muskogee Municipal Authority, and if appropriate, consider approval of a resolution approving the City of Muskogee budget for fiscal year 2017-2018 and establishing budget amendment authority or take other necessary action.
We are now in a public hearing. We have one citizen wishing to speak to this item. Would you like to hear that speaker now, or just start our discussions? I guess we'll get Stephen Azell up here to speak to us.
let's go ahead.
Stephen, you'll have 5 minutes, and
Thank you, sir.
I'm not sure where the timer starts. Got the time.
Stephen Ezel, 6121 South 6th Street, East Muskogee, Oklahoma. You know, when you think of a budget, there are two ways to think of a budget. One is you have this big cherry pie that's out there. Now, who all loves cherry pie? Well, the thing is that everyone wants an equal piece of the pie because they believe that they are more deserving, that each person believes that their needs are most immediate. The problem is that when you get everyone wanting the pie, that pie is going to be gone very, very quickly. So the key is you have to ration out the pie. Some people may not get as big a slice as they would like. Others may get more than what they asked for. But the way I believe that a budget should be addressed is in the concept of triage. Now, when I was a young medic, I learned this concept because the basic concept of triage is to pick and sort. I'll give you this good example. You go into an incident where you have massive casualties, massive multisystemic trauma casualties. And believe you me, I know something about trauma injuries. You get all these people who are screaming and yelling, saying, I'm hurt, please fix me. Now, the thing is, because they're screaming, they can essentially more or less tell you specifically what's wrong with them. You give them a good once-over. You make certain they're in any immediate danger of dying. But then you come to those people who are not screaming. They're hardly breathing. They have a very slow, very irregular pulse. They're bleeding profusely. And because they're not screaming, they can't tell you what's wrong with them. Those are the ones you need to treat first. It's in a situation like that, it's where being the worst makes you first. This is an instance where you have to think about there are things we'd like to do, and then there are things that we need to do. And you have to consider what issues in the city need the most immediate attention. You have an infrastructure that's well over probably 120, 130 years old. That includes your sewers, your sanitation, streets, the whole shebang. And you're going to have every department saying, well, I want this. Why won't you deal with me? Deal with me first. But you got to tell them, listen, there are things that need to be immediately addressed. And this is something my grandpa taught me. If you concern yourself with the things that need to be addressed and dealt with right now, then you will have time to be able to address the things, even though they're little, to make certain they're done right in a manner that's going to please everybody. It's going to please the city, it's going to please the citizenry, and hopefully get things either done within the budget or even under it. That is simply, when you approve this budget, I would like you all to consider the concept of triage. What areas are needed the worst, are in the worst condition? In other words, what areas need to be addressed first? Address those issues, then you can go on to tackling the little things that need to be I's dotted, T's crossed, check for spelling and punctuation. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Seeing that no one else has signed up to speak, we're going to close the public hearing. Mr. Miller?
Yes, Deputy Mayor and members of the City Council, what we have before you today is the same budget that you all recommended and reviewed last week and recommended for approval tonight. I do have a short presentation that I can go through in just a few minutes to recap it, and I think that would probably be wise. But before I do that, I want to thank the City Council, because they put in a tremendous amount of work to get to where we are today. They've been reviewing it, the numbers in some form or other, probably since our mid-year budget review in January, and it's been a very time-consuming process and a lot of analysis that the City Council has done, a lot of hard work that they've done to understand and get us to where we are today. I'm ready to hopefully approve a budget for next fiscal year. We'll start off with our history. What you see is we've generally been budgeting to spend our savings account, and we're happy that this year we're not doing that. One of the things other cities do and that we might consider in the future is they budget a percentage of their previous year's revenue. So they are always spending less. They're always budgeting less than they expect to take in. This is what the numbers look like. We've got about a $15,000 projected surplus. It's not a lot, but it's better than we have been doing. The revenue assumptions are based off sales tax being down the same next year as they are this year. Our recurring sales tax is down about 2%, and we project most other revenues to be flat from what they are this year. We got there by funding fewer positions through attrition. All the positions that we're planning to leave vacant are either currently unfilled or expected to be unfilled. At the start of the fiscal year, we're budgeting for every expense we can think of, including anticipated retirements, which we haven't necessarily done in the past. And we did use the strategic priorities. As Mr. Rizal mentioned, we have to make these decisions based off what we feel is important. And one of those priorities that's been identified was trying to improve our employee wage scale, and we've got money in the budget for that. Again, the budget does not include carryover or money from last year. We're planning on using the revenues from this year to coming year to pay for the expenses for this year. We are gonna have those monies set aside for employee increases and hopefully have a budget surplus. And as we talked about with the MMA budget, more than $1 million set aside for infrastructure improvements. I want to spend a minute or two on a couple of the other funds besides general fund, economic development. It's $1.2 million, as it has been. The use tax that's set aside for economic development, the one thing that we are asking to do differently, and we'll address in the next agenda item, is to use the money that we usually set aside in the special account for economic development projects, to use those for current projects, the urban renewal area and the Three Corners projects that are going along and actually doing well. We need to just pay the interest on the loans that we have for those projects, and we propose doing that from the economic development set aside money. The hotel motel tax, we project to bring in a little bit less than $1 million, $950,000, and use those on the projects and contractors you see there. MMA we've discussed already, but it is a high point that we have dedicated that money and prioritized in addressing infrastructure needs there. Our capital outlay budget is prioritized again on one-time expenditures that we think can be used to save money year over year. So we tried to, there's some things that we needed to do because we had to, and then when we're making choices here, we were trying to make decisions that would benefit us in the long term. We do have police and fire capital outlay budgets. Police we use every year for their vehicle debt service, and as I told you before, we're going to bring a plan forward in the coming weeks to try and address that situation to help them get vehicles on a much improved rotation rather than a 15-year rotation that they're currently on. And the fire, we're setting aside most of the money for improvements or replacement of fire station number 5. Other funds, I'm proud to say, do not require a general fund subsidy. You see those there. And so that brings us to here where I'm certainly open to answer any questions you have. I did not receive any comments from council since last week in our initial discussion, but I'd be happy to answer any now. Otherwise, I recommend approval.
Thank you. Discussions, thoughts?
As it was said before, I'm extremely pleased with the budget process that we've had this year. The council's been informed on the updates. We've been informed through the process. I've been very concerned with the past budgets that we've had, that we've been spending, and we've been kicking the can down the road. And this year, this was not the case. This is a visionary budget that was put together by great leadership, and it was really a team effort. And I appreciate that from all the directors, the secretaries, a true team effort that pulled this together. I was just extremely impressed at the retreat that we had a plan before us as the city council that was revealed to us with a vision, and that could only be presented with somebody with leadership that pulled a team together. And I'm really excited about the future of Muskogee when we have a trying time right now. When sales tax have been down, we're at a challenging time in our economy, but yet we can have a budget that is open, available to the public, available to the council, yet it truly is balanced. You know, by law we have to have a balanced budget, but when you're spending more than you're bringing in and you're going into the savings, I don't call that balanced, and we do have one this year, and I appreciate it very much, Mike, you bringing this budget to us, and I appreciate the council and all the input we've had as a team.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
And I'd like to echo that too, Mike. I think that you've done a great job putting this together, and sometimes in spite of the city council. I think sometimes we hinder what the city manager tries to do for the city. I appreciate you putting together a budget that we're actually going to have $14,000 more than what we would normally have. We'd be digging into the other side of this. And I wouldn't be me if I didn't echo my sentiments and my thoughts anyway, so I'm going to echo them again. I think that we could have put more money in that budget if we would have been more prudent with certain outsourcing of projects. I think that we could have probably added another $200,000 or so into our carryover, and I think that's not true. I think that was us that said that, and I wish we could put more money in there. It just made me feel a lot more comfortable than $15,000. So, but you did a great job getting us where we need to be.
Thank you, sir.
I'd like to add one thing, and that is the positive attitude that staff and upper management has, even the council. Tough decisions, tough times, but a positive, we're going to do this, we've got a vision attitude, and I really appreciate that from everybody.
If I may say, Mr. Tucker has helped mentor me a lot this year, and the staff has done an amazing job. When you say, I know some of you mentioned that, but to get where we are today, they had to do a lot of work, and they have done it, and they've done it well, and they deserve all the credit.
Thank you, Mr. Gallo. Any other comments, or do I hear a motion?
Move for approval.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Jenny Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
And the motion carries. Item number 10.
Consider approval of an ordinance amending the City of Muskogee Code of Ordinances by amending Chapter 74 Taxation, Article 8 Use Tax by amending Section 74-237 Economic Development Fund, modifying a proportionate of the tax to the Economic Development Fund General Account and the Economic Opportunity Account, adding authorization for expenditures for debt service on economic development projects, adding authorization for payment of levied taxes on behalf of the City of Muskogee Urban Renewal Authority, providing for repeal or severability and declaring an emergency, or take other necessary action.
Before I recognize Mr. Tucker, we have one person wishing to speak to this item. So, Mr. Tucker, if you'll give your presentation, then we'll recognize Mr. Hammond.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor, members of council. As you've just heard, as Mr. Miller presented the budget, there are a couple modifications or a couple proposals within the budget that will require an ordinance modification, particularly as it relates to our economic development ordinance. You all may remember this was proposed back in, I believe, 2009 by then Mayor John Tyler Hammond. So I'm not surprised that he's here to address any issues that he may have or suggestions. But what we have created here is made some modifications, particularly as it relates to the percentages that are placed within the fund and distributed within the general account and the economic opportunity account. For simplification, I look at the economic development fund as an umbrella. And within the umbrella, you have two particular prongs from it. One is the general account, and the other is the economic opportunity account. The economic opportunity account is the account from which any special development projects that the council desires to support based on high-impact employers, something that the city is desperately in need of, those kind of things the council can specifically approve to expend that money. The general fund is, of course, more for the things that we do on a general basis, such as paying some of our contractors that do economic development work from it. So what this proposal would do is modify the percentage of money that goes into that fund within those two specified accounts. The current wording is 60% into the general account with 40% in the economic opportunity account. The proposal is to modify that to 75% in the general account and 25% in the economic opportunity account. Additional modifications would be to include two additional provisions. One, to allow the fund to pay for debt service on economic development projects, and 7, to pay levies of ad valorem taxes on behalf of the City of Muskogee Urban Renewal Authority. There is another provision that pre-exists within the ordinance that allows for debt service, but it is limited to industrial and manufacturing. So with this additional language, what this will allow is funding that is proposed within the budget to be used to pay debt service on particularly the Three Corners project. That's the three corners of Highway 69 and 62 that we've taken. When I say we, I mean the Muskogee Redevelopment Authority has taken a loan out for acquisition of those parcels. And since they've not yet been resold, since one of them has been resold, but the other two have not yet, we do have to pay interest on that to the City of Muskogee Foundation. And additionally, ad valorem taxation. While the city is, of course, exempt from ad valorem taxation, properties that are owned by the Urban Renewal Authority are specifically not exempt. And so we do need to budget to pay those taxes. That could take the form of either a direct transfer to the Urban Renewal Authority to allow them to expend as they see fit, or to budget on behalf of the city to pay those on behalf of the Urban Renewal Authority. And so those additions are proposed to the new ordinance. With that, I will recommend approval. Happy to answer any questions.
Before we start those questions, Mr. Hammonds, would you like to address this? I know this is kind of one of your projects when you were mayor. I think you know we need your name and your address,
Yes,
please,
sir.
sir, in 5 minutes.
John Tyler Hammonds, 3401 Canterbury, Muskogee, Oklahoma. Honorable Deputy Mayor, members of the council, it's always a pleasure to address this body. I want to say appreciate you, the work that you have done on the budget. I especially want to thank our city manager, Mr. Miller. Appreciate the work you've done as well. I know it's a tough deal, and appreciate the work everybody's done. I've talked about the economic development ordinance. I think this may be my third or fourth time to come up here and address this issue. I have no objection to adding the additional expenditure authority. What I do object to is the changing of the percentages. Let me take you back in time to 2008. In 2008, the city spent approximately $125,000 total on economic development. That left us $0 for incentive, $0 for marketing, barely enough money to pay the light bill. Muskogee was not competing, and in the process of doing that, we were subsidizing every city in the state. We didn't come to the table, so Tahlequah won. We didn't come to the table, so Tulsa won. We didn't come to the table, so Oklahoma City won. The City Council back in 2011 came together and created this economic development ordinance to have money available for economic development projects. For the first time in a very long time, the city had money to pay for the Urban Renewal Authority for new manufacturing projects. It was an enormous event for the city of Muskogee. As Mr. Tucker talked about, by creating two funds that allow for general operations and for savings, we put together a nest egg to pay for these projects. As the city manager's budget that you all have approved indicates, you're spending approximately $1.7 million out of the Economic Development Fund. But each year, only $1.2 million goes into the fund. That means you have spent $500,000 additional dollars out of your savings account for necessary projects. That $500,000 is only available because the council wisely sought to put some money back. I'm asking that you do not change the allocation. If you change the allocation, that's going to remove $200,000 each and every year out of your savings account into your operations account. If you need $200,000 this year to pay interest on 3 corners of some other project, make a special vote, take it out of that fund. Do not take it out of don't take it out of the formula. Each time you take money out of the savings account, that's going to make it harder for us to compete each and every time. We've never had money before to pay for projects. We've never had money before to pay for incentives. We finally have that money. The program is working. Your budget you just approved proved that it is working. I ask that you do not change that. Continue to put in that $500,000 every single year into your economic savings account. If you need the money, take a vote out of it. But don't take the money out every single year not knowing if you'll need it next year. I'd hate for you to come back next year and thought, wow, we didn't need it. Let's just change the ordinance back. If you need the money this year, vote it out this year. I would ask that you leave the ordinance as it is relating to allocation. I have no objection to the additional funding, as Mr. Tucker indicated. It was originally designed for manufacturing and the like. We didn't have the Urban Renewal Authority when this ordinance was created, so this is a necessary change I would recommend on that. But again, leave the allocation the same. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor.
If I may address
Sure.
a couple of those things really quickly. First, the allocation, as we look at it, we did not intend to change the allocation when we put the budget together. As in last year's budget, we had 3/4 of the money go into into the operating and 1/4 of the money go into the Economic Development Fund. And then we'd done that in the prior years as well. And so when we were looking at the ordinance, we realized that perhaps our past practice hadn't matched up with the ordinance. So the change is not to actually impacting we're not changing our allocation as we have practiced it in the past. As we've discussed with you before, it's been $900,000 for the operating and $300,000 every year that we've been putting in to this Economic Opportunity Fund. Secondly, the $400,000 or the discussion then that we had budgeted to spend $500,000 more than we're putting in. The reason that is that we have the carryover in the Economic Development Fund that we do budget to spend every year. We don't budget it as a line item because the council, of course, has to approve all those expenditures. So we're not budgeting to spend that money. We're budgeting to have that money available to be spent by the City Council, but we're not deficit spending out of that budget. It's just incorporating all the previous year's carryover in addition to the $1.2 million of new money. So I wanted to make sure that was clear, that the bulk of that extra revenue that we're talking about is the Economic Opportunity Fund that's in existence right now and has a balance of $400,000 is why we're budgeting to spend more than 1.2. It's because we are carrying a balance forward in that Economic Opportunity account. So I wanted to clarify both of those things. Number one, that's why we're spending more than $1.2 million is because we have money in that fund currently. And number two, the allocation is staying the same as past practice, but we're modifying the ordinance to mirror what we've done rather than doing what we've done without modifying the ordinance.
Thanks, sir.
So in the past, basically what you're saying is we did vote it out, but now we're going to fix it, so it'll just be there?
You're maybe asking the wrong guy about the past practice.
But you brought up past practice, so that's why I was asking.
We mirrored this year's budget off of last year's budget in economic development, which was the 900 and the 300.
Is what we're doing as a past practice an intelligent thing to do? Or should we kind of like make sure that we're not doing our past practice?
Well, that is the choice of the council and the priorities. What we've done, though, is create a budget based off of the assumptions that we liked what we were doing in economic development, which is putting $300,000 a year in that special fund. So if we need to change that, that'll have ripple effects throughout the budget. If we don't use the general budget as we've allocated for economic development, then we'll have to do it out of a general fund or some other way if we put more money into the economic development fund. The other thing I think that's important to note about both of these expenditures that we're talking about coming from the Economic Opportunity Fund is that we're budgeting, as you remember, we're budgeting for all potential expenses, anticipated expenses. If we may not need to pay, if we sell URA land, we may not need to pay the interest on the loans moving forward. If we sell Three Corners land, we may not need to pay the interest moving forward. But we need to budget to be able to do that so that we don't have to scrounge around and look for money when that time comes, because we know when those payments are going to be due. So this is just a way for us to wisely budget for an expense that we may not actually have, and if so, the money then does stay in that Economic Opportunity Fund. If we don't if we don't need the money, it stays in the Economic Opportunity Fund. If we do, we've budgeted for it and are able to pay it.
So what I'm trying to catch up where you're at, because I remember us talking about it, but now I'm going to ask a couple more questions. So are we overexpending what we planned on spending, or was there another source to pull money from where we intended the money to come from to pay for this?
When you say this,
the three corners. Is that money set up to? The money supposed to come out of this? Did we buy more land than we should have because we didn't have the money, or was this money supposed to come from somewhere else to pay for it?
When we put these purchases together, I don't know that we had the plan in place of how we were going to pay the interest on the note moving forward. We didn't have it in the budget. I think in the past, we found the money when the time was right, and that's problematic. And in the past, we had a savings account that we could dip into to do that, and that's what we did. I don't think that's how we ought to do it moving forward, which is why I'm proposing to put it in the budget. It wasn't previously in the budget, and this seems like that we would pay for an economic development project out of economic development money, which is why we put it there.
Well, and one other thing I may add is that last year, the money that was used to pay the interest was from the sale of the southeast corner.
Okay.
That was the first year we had interest due, so we're in the second year then.
Councilor Hall, if I misstate something you said, please feel to correct me. I think along the lines of what Councilor Hall is also saying, that if we have to do what we're doing now in order to correct some of our previous practices, if we're going to have smaller budgets going forward, does the ordinance need to be amended permanently, or do we just need to amend it for this fiscal year and then look at it again in next or ongoing fiscal years to be certain that we don't have to do it again? Would that be something that we could do, since it would only affect this upcoming budget?
Well, and it's pretty close to what I'm thinking,
Okay.
Because I guess in my ultimate thought process I'm having is that we're dipping into our savings to make a living here. I mean, and I don't know if I like that. I don't like getting into something in a permanent manner, because we've already proven that we like to overspend. We like to spend our money, the city's money, and go, woo, we're going to pay for it out of this, and that didn't happen.
Well, in this case, it's not our savings. Our savings would stay the same. We have $400,000 in the account. We're budgeting the new revenue that's coming in rather than adding to that fund. We're paying for a current project. So our savings still stays the same.
But we won't put as much money in that
That's
savings.
correct. If we don't
So
sell
if
the
we get
land,
down to that, we're not going to have any more money to pull out of there.
right. And so we have these two economic development projects that are active and ongoing, and we need to fund them in some way. And so I propose that we fund them out of the economic development fund. And if there's another way to do it, we can go find another way to do it. But this is
Well, we can vote to have the money pulled out for like one time and then see where we're at next year, correct? And still changing the percentages, like,
if we change the percentages, what we'll do is take out more from the general budget than we need to pay that debt service. So that will then build that fund, but it will have ripple impacts on the money that's in the general economic development budget. And we can go back through that of what's in there. But there's money for a lot of different projects that's in economic development that we would not then have economic development money for.
could we not go vote on it to pull it back, pull out what we needed, just so we have, so we don't change the percentages?
I think, and Mr. Tucker may help me with the right wording, but what we'd like to do is keep the dollar amounts the same for this year, the 900 and the 300, and the percentage, and then the percentage can be whatever it is for next year. If you'd like to keep the percentages, and I'd like to not necessarily change the percentages, or I guess we can change the percentages for a one year basis.
I will tell you this ordinance has been amended. This is the fifth proposed ordinance on it. So, and we've done that because you all may remember we had suspended the $300,000 that was allocated into the opportunity account twice over the last couple of years. So this is something that we have looked at every year and made whatever modifications we've seen, at least on a yearly basis.
See, and I like that because we're at least keeping track of what we're doing out of it. If we flip it to the percentages that we're putting in here, then we're just going to spend on the other side whatever we're using. I mean, then we're going to go, well, we need another percentage, so now it's instead of 75, we need 80%. Then we need 90%. Then we're like, then we're going to be trying to refinance something and go buy a new truck after we're done. I can't do that. I'm not getting this right.
Sure. I just want to reemphasize the 75% is how we did this year's budget that we're in right now, and as far as I know, the budget that we did the year before. So that the intent was not to change. But when we looked at the ordinance, we said, well, we better make sure the ordinance matches what we're actually doing. So that's why we've come forward. It was not the intent was not to change a past practice. The intent was to make the ordinance. I think we should follow the ordinance, so we should make it match what we're doing, or we should change what we're doing.
That's what I'd rather do. I would like for us to take care of our debt and change the way we're doing it and still change the ordinance. I would rather get the money that we need and instead of keep changing the way we want to do it. We got to have some consequences here, and we got to have some, restraint in this budgeting. I keep seeing where we keep handing everybody money, and we got to hang on to some of it somewhere, guys.
But we've incurred debt on the three corners that has to be paid for.
And I don't disagree that, but my point is that what we're saying, though, is we don't have to change the ordinance to pay that debt. We can change how much we take out, refuse to, what did you call it a while ago, and still putting it in the savings to suspend it, to hang on to it, to pay the debt service. So I'm trying to figure out why we're trying to change it now.
So you're suggesting that we change our past practices and have votes to transfer.
Yes, I would love to see that. Instead
Our past practices have not lined up with what we should have been doing, and Mr. Hall's proposing that we do what we should have been doing and have formal votes. And I'm okay either way. I'd like to commend Mayor Hammonds for the work they did years ago to identify this. At the same time, I don't want to put too much onto the manager because for the first time, Mike's trying to make sure this is a budget item and it's all out in the open and that we know exactly what's going on, which hadn't been. And as long as this body, our council, sees the importance of funding and in years going forward trying to fully fund our economic development fund, I'll be tickled pink. And like Mr. Johnson suggests, we have just done a big economic development move with the Three Corners, and you know that's when things change, is when you do a new project. Your money shift around, or you're open to paying interest, and these things are all necessary and all normal. And going forward, these things will happen again. And I'm, as long as we've got responsible stewardship by our manager, I'm okay to go either way with Mr. Hall or what Mr. Tucker's proposing.
But if we've been doing it this way for 2 or 3 years and it's working, it looks to me like that our terminology ought to match what we have been doing, which is to pass this.
Well, you're right about that. If we're going to do it that way, we need to change our ordinance.
And
Mr.
it
Hall's
looks to me like
suggesting
doing
that
it
we
that
need
way
to
is
not
working.
do it that way.
Well, I think and Dan, you correct me, because I think you and I are saying the same thing, that we could live with the modification on a yearly basis, but not forever and a day.
I agree with that, because at some point, we need to change our practice.
Right.
And start saving more money to do what we need to do with it.
So, Mr. Tucker, would this be appropriate if I made a motion that we would receive the modification to the ordinance for fiscal year 18 exclusively?
You could do that.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second, and just for clarity, it leaves for Mr. Miller still $900,000, $300,000 to go forward with this budget, and won't.
And it doesn't
have any
change.
ripple effects?
Right. It has no ripple effect
Right.
on the budget.
Correct. The modification of 75-25 would be for 1 year only.
Yes,
Right.
sir. And it still won't affect the budget that we worked so hard on.
It'll
And
be
that way, over
in
12
conformance
months,
with the existing budget.
Yeah, that way over 12 months, council can look at its practices, be certain that we're doing what we can to make this solvent and make it work as it was designed to do so.
Okay, are we all clear on the motion? Motion is second. Any other thoughts? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes?
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item number 11.
Receive 2017 Safety Plan Progress Report and announcement of Workplace Safety Awareness Campaign, and provide necessary direction to staff.
Before we move on, Deputy Mayor, we do have the emergency.
Oh, I'm sorry,
in
I'm
this
sorry.
ordinance
Yes,
as
sir.
well.
I even have it circled.
Motion to declare an emergency.
Thank you.
Second.
A motion and a second. Sorry about that. Any other discussion? Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
Motion carries. Now, item 11. Thank you.
Read it again.
Oh, did you already read it? Well, yes, let's read it again since we had a
Okay.
motion in between. You need to practice.
Receive 2017 Safety Plan Progress Report and announcement of Workplace Safety Awareness Campaign, and provide necessary direction to staff.
Mr. Tucker.
Deputy Mayor, members of council, I am very pleased to introduce our safety manager, Dakota Jones, who will be addressing this item. You all know he was hired just shy of a year ago to come forward and manage our safety program. And when Manager Miller took over, he transferred safety under the city attorney's office. So I've been very proud of the work that Dakota has done, and hope you will too. So as you may remember, several months ago, he put forward a safety plan for us to review. Now he'd like to go over the progress of where we've come from. So with that, Dakota, I'll turn it over to you.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Mayor and members of the City Council. Like Mr. Tucker said, I'm here to present the update on the safety plan so far, which was implemented in January of this year. To outline what we're going to cover today, we will discuss the safety committee, what they've completed so far, the safety training that we've conducted so far, the safety culture, which can be hard to gauge, but we can at least get an idea of that, and then the workplace safety awareness campaign event that's coming up. So on to the safety committee. As promised, they've met every month since January to review injury accidents and make recommendations. We do have an average of 6 injury accidents every month in the city. That's OSHA recordable and non-recordable. We do look at those very detailed and give them a lot of attention to find the root cause of the accident, not to place blame, and that's been our point from the beginning. To give you some examples, we had a parks employee that was tearing down the skate rink that they put out there. He was pulling down a beam, one of the handrails, it fell onto his foot. He had steel-toed boots on as required, but it landed on his metatarsal area above the toes. So one of the suggestions was we buy metatarsal protective guards to give to them for when they're doing that task. That's just a simple little explanation of what they do in the committee. Another would be a sanitation injury where an employee stepped off the back of the truck incorrectly, twisted his knee, injured it, had to be out of work. So we suggested a training in that area to discuss how the operator stops and goes and ensures that the employee on the back is on the step before they leave, off the step when they stop. That's just another example of that. So they also plan the workplace safety awareness campaign event, which we'll talk about more later. And we've involved management and employee level employees in the committee, which has been crucial to breaking that communication barrier between employees, management on safety issues. They didn't know where to go, and now they have somewhere to discuss those issues. We also update and create safety policies. We have updated the Council Policy 2-5, Treatment of Injuries, Reporting of Accidents, and Alternative Work, and that was updated and adopted recently. Now on to the safety training. We've completed compliance training monthly and some awareness training added in for just extra education for our employees. Those range from back and lifting safety to respirator fit testing. We also conduct toolbox talks every week. I send those out to our supervisors. That gets them more involved. It gets our employees listening to their supervisors more, if that's possible. And at least giving them a better example to go off of other than just me coming out and yelling at them. So we've got the inexpensive and effective training approach going as well. I've barely spent any money on training this year because I've conducted most of it myself and or hired companies that do it for free or very cheap. And just a shout out to those would be OSU, the LTAP, the training program, and Indian Capital Technology Center. Very inexpensive options. The defensive driving course is one of the best ones we've had so far. This February we held that, and OSU LTAP presented it to us. It was very well received, and we're trying to plan one again this summer if we have the funds available from OMAG. So now the safety culture. I've noticed attitudes moving towards safety first. I get more and more calls about issues in their department, supplies being needed, and to me that means they're worried about safety, and they're coming to someone and asking for help. So the management has also been encouraging that safe work by doing those toolbox trainings, by helping me do my trainings, and reassuring what I'm saying to them. And positive reinforcement is one of my main pushes. I don't want to be the guy that just comes out and disciplines everyone for doing something wrong. I want to recognize when they do something right. So part of that will be giving away safety t-shirts that we've created and hats. I think a quick way to do that is you see something done safely, give them a shirt, give them a hat. They'll love that. And it's a simple, cost-effective means. And I think good quality personal protective equipment is also important for our culture. They will wear it more often if the the safety glasses look cool, if the gloves fit comfortably, they work well, they last longer. So we're trying to improve that as well. So if you haven't seen it yet, we have a safety logo now. It says from action to attitude. It looks kind of dim over here, but that's a fluorescent orange to give it the safety vibe. We hired a local artist to create this. From action to attitude. So this was created to help spread the word on safety. It can be placed on shirts, hats like we've done so far. We can put it onto cars, wherever we can get it. And if we change our attitudes and actions in the workplace, hopefully will prevent accidents and then create a safety culture within the city. So to end, the Workplace Safety Awareness Campaign is an event we're holding this Wednesday to show some appreciation to our employees for committing themselves to safety. We do have t-shirts for the council members here with our safety logo on the back of them. This will be at the fairgrounds. There will be a hot dog lunch, chips, drinks. Can't go without dessert. We have local vendors. I'll give a shout out to them. Fastenal, Lowe's, Tractor Supply, American Industrial are all sponsoring this event, bringing out safety gear for our guys to look at so they can tell me to buy it. And then we will have door prizes at this event as well. So
is it May 31st? I think you said.
yes, I may have said differently. It is May 31st, so next Wednesday.
Okay.
And that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I'm open.
How big is your safety committee?
It is 10 or 11 employees. Depends on who we send from Public Works every month.
Okay.
You're not even going to hold one of these up? Dakota? I mean,
Extra one?
Well, because the mayor's not here. But you might hold it up for the camera. And the people in the audience.
there you go.
That's good.
Other way.
There we go.
Keep turning. Keep turning. You're that way. You wouldn't be very good at a ball game, son.
Delayed, just so you know.
Now turn forward.
Turn forward.
Towards us.
Towards us. There we go.
There
There we go.
Keep-
Perfect.
Is that better?
Just leave it. There we go. Everyone. That's a cool shirt, Dakota.
That is. There you go. Thanks, Dakota.
Watch your step.
Outstanding.
We don't need a motion for that, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
All right. We're going to recognize citizens wishing to speak to the council. Rachel, you'll come up and give us your name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi. Rochelle Horney, 812 Court Street, Muskogee, Oklahoma. I just wanted to take a moment and come thank the city of Muskogee and all the departments that helped us pull off our 7th annual Touch a Truck event on May 13th. Even after having to change the date because of weather issues, we were able to have a good turnout, and it certainly would not be able to be done year after year without the help of many departments in the city. So Muskogee Public Library would like to thank the council members and all of Muskogee for the help. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Stephen Azell, as you signed up to speak, name and address, and you'll have 3 minutes, Steve.
Stephen Ezel, 6121 South 6th Street East. You know, I've been given a lot of thought to, for those of you who've heard about the result of the verdict up in Tulsa. You know, it's easy to play the blame game on one person or another, but the true culprit in this matter is that of drug and substance abuse. And I believe that to be a real safety issue and concern. Because there are people out there who say, well, it's a white problem or a black problem or a brown problem or a red problem or a yellow problem, or it's just a poor person's problem. I can assure you that drug and substance abuse can affect those who are highly educated and highly affluent, just as it can affect people who come from projects or poverty-stricken families. There are some numbers I want you to think about. Korean War, 33,000 combat dead. Vietnam War, 47,000 combat dead. First Gulf War, 30 combat dead. War on terrorism, 7,800 combat dead. Last year alone, from drug and substance abuse, 113,880 dead. That's about 312 people dead in one day. Now, if a battalion or brigade commander lost that many people from their unit, they'd be immediately relieved of their command or be subject to court-martial. But yet, a lot of times out here in the public, we don't give that even the slightest bit of thought. We have no feeling, or we pass the buck and say it's another person's problem. But I want you to know that you know somebody. Every one of you on this council knows someone whom it's happened to. You are looking at one who has been affected. After my accident, I became hooked on narcotic painkillers. And I assure you that I did not intend to. So if it can happen to me, it can happen to anybody. And I will tell everyone this. Messing with drugs is not only dangerous, it's deadly. It's not just foolish, it's foolhardy. At best, you will live to regret it. At worst, you won't live at all. So, drug and substance abuse, it is our problem, but we can find solutions. And it is a safety concern. I thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Seeing that we have no one else to speak, we'll go on to item number 12.
Consider an executive session to discuss and take possible action on the following. A, pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25, Oklahoma statutes, consider convening an executive session to discuss the pending tort claim of Travis DeShazer and, if necessary, take appropriate action in open session.
I'll entertain a motion.
Move we adjourn the executive session.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Dan Hall.
Yes.
The motion carries. Welcome back to the City Council. Roll call.
Mayor Bob Coburn. Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Here.
Dan Hall.
Here.
Marlon Coleman.
Here.
Janie Boydston.
Here.
Wayne Johnson.
Here.
Patrick Kale.
Here.
Ivory Van.
Here.
Derek Reed.
Here.
We're all here. Item 12A.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Pursuant to Section 307B4, Title 25 Oklahoma statutes, the City Council did convene an executive session to discuss the pending tort claim of Travis DeShazer. After being fully briefed of the status of that claim and the potential liability on the behalf of the city, I believe an appropriate motion would be to move approval of settlement of the claim in the amount of $3,695.06. Further authorizing the city attorney to file a friendly suit for the purpose of placing the judgment on the sinking fund.
So move.
Second.
Second.
We got a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Fast.
Roll call.
Deputy Mayor James Scully.
Yes.
Janie Boydston.
Yes.
Patrick Kale.
Yes.
Marlon Coleman.
Yes.
Wayne Johnson.
Yes.
Ivory Van.
Yes.
Derek Reed.
Yes.
Yes.
And the motion carries. See no further business. We are adjourned.